Maybe tonight, the air feels heavier than usual. You have done everything right, and yet something inside still aches. A quiet place that refuses to heal on command. You can rest now. The world has gone silent enough for you to finally listen. Beyond the dim light of the room, where the hum of the night folds into stillness, the story begins to drift. There is a sea beneath every human soul. Deep, dark, patient. In that sea, old memories sleep like stones at the bottom, waiting for the tide of awareness to touch them again. Some call it the night sea, the quiet ocean Jung once spoke of, where pain and understanding share the same water. It is not a place of despair, but of transformation. There, the parts of you that still hurt do not ask to be fixed. They ask to be seen. And as the waves move without hurry, something in the dark begins to shimmer. A small light rising, not from outside, but from within. You are not broken. You are becoming. Some nights arrive without warning. The city fades behind its own noise, and a strange quiet begins to fill the air. The kind that doesn't ask for attention, only presence. In that stillness, there is a room, small and dim, somewhere deep within the human mind. No one else knows this room exists. Even those who laugh the loudest, who move through bright conversations and crowded streets, carry it quietly. It is the space you return to when no one is watching. Not a place of sadness, but of weightless silence. In that unseen room, the walls are not built from bricks, but from moments you never spoke aloud. The air feels thick, heavy with what was never said, yet soft, as if even your thoughts tread lightly there. This is where loneliness begins, not as an absence of people, but as a whisper from within, a gentle reminder that the soul still wants to be heard. Jung once said that solitude is not emptiness, but the night sea, the dark water through which the spirit swims to rediscover itself. The unseen room is part of that ocean. Inside, nothing is demanded of you. You do not need to smile, perform, or explain. The mind stops rushing to fill the silence, and in that brief pause, something hidden starts to breathe again. At first, it feels unfamiliar, almost foreign, this quiet. But slowly, the quiet becomes kind. It holds your exhaustion without judgment, forgives your confusion, and makes space for what you have tried to forget. Perhaps this is why so many fear being alone, not because they cannot stand silence, but because silence reveals what was always waiting underneath. Loneliness, then, is not punishment. It is the invitation back to the room that belongs only to you. To sit there is not to be cut off from the world, but to find the doorway back to yourself. The soul, after all, does not speak in words. It speaks in pauses, in the warmth of still air, in the way time slows when you stop running. So tonight, if the world grows quiet around you, do not rush to fill it. Let it unfold. Sit in that unseen room within your chest for 3 minutes, not to fix anything, not to search for meaning, only to notice the space that has always been there. Feel how the mind softens when it is not forced to explain itself. Listen to the silence until you can tell it apart from fear. This is where the healing begins, quietly, invisibly, like dawn moving behind closed curtains. Solitude is not absence. It is space. There is a mirror that follows every human being, not one made of glass, but of perception. It doesn't hang on any wall, yet it reflects every thought, every judgment, every unspoken memory that lives within. Most people never realize they are looking into it all the time. They think they see the world as it is, But as Jung once said, no one truly perceives reality. We only see it as we are. The mirror of the self is never perfectly clear. It is fogged by experience, shaped by belief, and tinted by the fears we have carried too long. A person who once felt abandoned may look into another's eyes and see distance where there is only quiet. Someone who has been betrayed may see deceit in every gesture, even the kind ones. The world bends itself around what the mind already believes to be true. What we call reality is often the echo of our own reflection. This distortion is subtle, almost invisible. You walk through a day thinking people are colder, the light dimmer, the air heavier, not because the world has changed, but because your inner weather has shifted. The mirror does not lie. It only magnifies what is already there. It doesn't create your pain. It only reflects the part of you that has not yet been seen. The fear of being left behind, the longing to be understood, the quiet resentment you try to swallow, all of it finds its image somewhere outside, disguised as coincidence, conflict, or fate. To see clearly again, one must learn to clean the mirror gently, not by denying the reflection, but by tracing it back to its source. When someone's words hurt you, pause before reacting. Ask yourself, what part of me recognized that pain so quickly? When a stranger's indifference feels personal, ask, what memory does this awaken in me? Most of the world's noise disappears the moment you realize how much of it began inside. Journaling is one way to listen to the mirror without fear. Take a moment each day and write down 3 emotional reactions that caught you off guard: anger, sadness, irritation, longing. For each one, ask softly, which part of me is reflecting this? The point is not to fix or analyze, but to witness. In that witnessing, the reflection changes. You begin to see that the world is not against you. It is responding to your inner tone. And as the days pass, the mirror grows less distorted. People no longer appear as threats or saviors, but as neutral faces in the great theater of existence. The silence between you and others becomes softer. You stop demanding that the world comfort your wounds, and instead, you learn to meet your own reflection with compassion. That is when perception becomes vision. When you no longer see through the filter of fear, but through the clarity of understanding. The mirror does not ask for perfection. It asks for presence. To look and not turn away. To see the reflection and remember that what you see is not the end, but the beginning of awareness. The world is not against you. It is reflecting you. There is a moment in every life when the noise begins to fade. Not because the world has grown quieter, but because the soul has. In that pause, when there is nothing left to distract or entertain, something subtle awakens. Loneliness, once feared as emptiness, becomes a beginning. Jung believed that solitude is not isolation, but the birthplace of consciousness. To be alone is to return to the soil from which awareness first grows. Darkness plays its part in this process. It is not the enemy of light, but its patient teacher. Think of a seed resting beneath the surface of the earth. No one sees its struggle, its stillness, its slow unraveling. Yet in that unseen depth, something miraculous happens. The seed begins to understand itself before it reaches for the sun. Loneliness works the same way. It buries you for time, not to punish, but to prepare. Beneath the soil of silence, identity softens, and what is real in you starts to breathe. At first, the quiet feels unbearable. The mind searches for sound, for company, for the hum of something to keep it from hearing itself. But over time, the silence reveals its gentleness. It begins to hold you the way earth holds a seed. Firm, steady, patient. The longer you stay, the more you see that there is no punishment here, only presence. The darkness was never against you. It was where you were meant to rest before becoming whole. To practice this understanding, one must return to silence with intention. Choose a single evening and let the world fall away. No music, no screen, no conversation. Sit in a dim room and let your thoughts move like clouds through still air. Watch them pass without trying to fix or fight them. Notice how your breathing slows when you stop reaching for something outside yourself. The silence that once frightened you begins to sound like home. As the minutes stretch, you may find small truths surfacing. The mind will replay fragments of old conversations, moments left unresolved, or desires you had forgotten. Do not chase them. Let them to dissolve in the quiet. Every silence has something to teach. Sometimes a lesson about patience, sometimes about surrender, sometimes simply about being. When you rise from that stillness, the world will not have changed, but you will. The edges of life will feel softer, the air lighter. You will begin to understand that peace was never hidden in noise or comfort, but in the ability to sit with what is. The self, once scattered, starts to gather. Loneliness, then, is not an exile. It is the soil where consciousness first blooms. The seed does not resent the darkness, it trusts it. It knows that growth requires time, quiet, and the courage to stay unseen for a while. So let the night cover you without fear. Let the silence speak. Every silence has something to teach. Life unfolds like a quiet stage. Each morning, the curtains rise, and without even realizing it, every person steps into a role. Some wear confidence like armor. Some drape kindness across the shoulders like a gentle disguise. And others hide behind silence, pretending it is peace. The masks are many, but the purpose is the same: to belong, to survive, to be loved without being hurt. This theater is not a lie. The masks are not deceit, they are language. When a child learns that anger earns rejection, but politeness brings approval, a mask forms. When pain is mocked, the mask of strength appears. When truth is ignored, the mask of composure grows. Jung once said that what we show the world is not our essence, but our adaptation. Persona, the face presented to the collective, is not falsehood. It is protection. It helps us move through the crowded marketplace of existence without being cut open by every glance. But trouble begins when the mask grows too close to the skin, when the act becomes the actor. You forget that the voice the world praises is not always your own. You smile not because you feel joy, but because you have learned that silence makes others uneasy. You say you are fine because fine is safer than fragile. Slowly, the theater becomes a prison lit by applause. You begin to mistake survival for identity. The most common roles are easy to name. The strong one, who carries others' burdens and hides exhaustion behind competence. The kind one, who gives endlessly, afraid that saying no will make them unlovable. The calm one, who never complains, who holds storms inside their chest and calls it peace. Each role serves a purpose, but none can hold the fullness of who you are. Masks protect you until they start to hide you. to rediscover the person beneath the performance, begin with awareness. Tonight, sit quietly and write down the 3 roles you play most often. Do not judge them, simply recognize them. Ask yourself when each one appears and what fear it protects. Notice how your body feels when you wear them. The tightening in the jaw, the quiet fatigue behind the smile. Awareness softens the grip of performance. When you see the masks clearly, something tender happens. You stop hating them. You understand that they were built in moments of fear, when your younger self needed safety more than authenticity. Gratitude replaces shame, and in that gratitude, the masks loosen. You can take them off, not to expose yourself completely, but to breathe. The theater of faces will never disappear. Life demands its stage. But now you walk it consciously, shifting between roles without losing the thread of truth beneath them. The face the world sees and the soul that watches from behind it no longer compete. They collaborate. That is the art of balance, the quiet integration between self and survival. And when the lights dim and the curtain falls, you no longer fear the silence that follows. You know who stands there when the performance ends. Masks protect you until they start to hide you. Every life bends beneath invisible weights. Not the burdens we can name, but the quiet pressure of what others expect us to be. It begins gently, like a whisper in childhood. Be good, be strong, make them proud. And slowly, those words shape the bones of identity until one day, a person wakes up not knowing whether the life they are living still belongs to them. Nietzsche once wrote, "He who has a why can bear almost any how." It is true. The soul can survive pain, failure, and even despair if it knows why it endures. But when the why is borrowed, when it no longer grows from the soil of one's own desire, the spirit weakens. It is like carrying a torch that does not warm you, running toward a finish line that someone else has drawn. The tragedy is quiet. You do not notice the exhaustion at first. You keep achieving, giving, smiling, adapting. You tell yourself it is for love, for duty, for belonging. Yet somewhere deep beneath those explanations, a small voice begins to fade. It is the voice that once said, "This is what I truly want." When you trade that voice for approval, you begin to live on borrowed breath. The weight of expectation does not always come from others. Sometimes it is self-inflicted. The mind replaying old standards inherited from family, culture, or fear. You wear success like armor, but inside, something trembles. You call it responsibility, but it feels more like survival. The applause grows louder, yet you feel smaller within it. Freedom begins when the applause no longer decides your worth. There comes a moment when the performance stops serving its purpose. The goals that once inspired begin to drain. You realize that every smile you forced was another mile walked away from yourself. The question is not whether the world's approval can be satisfying. It never was. The real question is whether you dare to live without it. To understand this truth, try something simple. Write down one thing you are currently doing only to be loved. A task, a habit, a promise you keep out of fear rather than joy. Hold that sentence in silence for 2 minutes. Ask softly, "Does this still belong to me?" Do not rush the answer. If your chest tightens or your breath shortens, that is the body's quiet way of saying no. You do not need to abandon everything, only to begin distinguishing between what is yours and what was borrowed. When you reclaim your own why, the heaviness begins to lift. The world does not change, but the air becomes lighter. You walk slower, more deliberate, guided by an inner rhythm that does not depend on applause. To live by your own purpose is not rebellion, it is remembrance. It is the moment you turn towards your own fire and let it warm you again. And so the weight loosens, not because others expect less, but because you expect differently. You no longer bend to fit a story that was never yours. You rise within it, steady, unhurried, unafraid to disappoint. Freedom begins when the applause no longer decides your worth. When the curtain falls, the theater exhales. The lights dim, footsteps fade, and the air regains its stillness. For a moment, the stage is only a room again. No applause, no spotlight, no need to pretend. This is the art of returning, the quiet act of stepping off the stage of the world and remembering that you exist even when no one is watching. In every life, there comes a point when the performance outlives its meaning. The smile that once opened doors begins to feel heavy. The voice that pleased others starts to tremble under the weight of repetition. The soul, weary from constant adaptation, longs for a place without script or audience. Yet the habit of pretending runs deep. Even in solitude, people rehearse their roles, trying to prove their worth to the echoes of unseen judges. But truth waits patiently beneath the noise. It lives in the moment after the applause fades, when there is nothing left to maintain. Jung wrote that what we repress does not disappear. It waits in silence to be welcomed home. The self is no different. Beneath the layers of image and expectation lies the raw presence that has watched everything unfold. Not the actor, but the witness. When you stop performing, that witness steps forward, soft and steady, to remind you of who you have always been. This is why the night feels sacred. In darkness, the masks lose their shape. No one asks for your strength, your charm, your composure. The world grows distant, and what remains is breath, the simplest truth of being alive. To return to yourself is not an act of rebellion, but of rest. It is a quiet surrender to honesty. Before sleep, try something small. Sit for a moment in the half light of your room. Inhale deeply, as if drawing back all the fragments you scattered throughout the day. The words you said to please, the emotions you hid to stay composed. Exhale slowly and whisper to yourself, "Tonight, I do not need to perform." Feel the way the body loosens, the mind softens, the world slips into distance. The soul rests when it stops performing. As the breath evens out, the quiet becomes a kind of mercy. The stage disappears, only the presence remains. You begin to see that authenticity is not something you must create. It was simply waiting for space. The walls around your thoughts stop echoing, and for a while, there is only calm awareness, neither seeking nor defending. When morning returns, the world will ask for its roles again. But now, you know the way back. You can walk the stage without losing yourself in the act. You can wear the mask lightly, knowing it is not your face. You can meet the noise of the day with the silence of the night still breathing in you. The art of returning is not about withdrawal. It is about remembering the still point within movement, the quiet truth beneath expression. And when the lights fade again, you will not fear the silence. You will know it as home. The soul rests when it stops performing. Every soul carries a house within it, a quiet, sprawling place built of memories, rooms, and seasons of emotion. Most of these rooms are lived in daily, full of movement and light. But there is always one door at the end of a forgotten hallway, a door that stays closed no matter how many times you pass it. Behind that door lies the attic, the hidden space of the mind, where all the moments you did not want to remember were quietly stored away. The attic holds more than pain. It holds everything that once felt too much. Anger left unsaid, tears swallowed mid-sentence, the impulse to shout, to cry, to be seen, all of it packed into boxes and pushed into corners. People often mistake that attic for darkness, but it is only the storage room of what was never given time to breathe. The shadow, Jung wrote, is not evil. It is the part of the self that was not allowed to exist in daylight. In this sense, the attic is not a punishment, but a pause. Each box holds a fragment of truth waiting to be acknowledged. Some contain the traits you dislike in others: arrogance, carelessness, deceit. Things that provoke irritation because at some point they once lived in you. To face the attic is to realize that the people you judge are often mirrors reflecting what you have exiled. This realization does not accuse, it invites. To begin the process, try a small exercise. Write down 3 things that consistently bother you about others. It might be their dishonesty, their need for attention, their coldness. Then ask softly, have I ever been this? Or do I still carry a trace of this within me? Do not answer immediately. Let the question linger in silence, like light filtering through dust. The mind may resist, but somewhere beneath that resistance lies recognition. To look into the attic is to remember that everything stored there once tried to protect you. Perhaps the anger shielded you from humiliation. Perhaps the pride guarded your dignity. Even the cruelty you regret was, at some point, an attempt to feel less powerless. The attic waits not for shame, but for understanding. It asks not to be condemned, but to be seen. When you finally dare to open the door, you may find it less frightening than you imagined. The air smells of old rain and memory. The walls hum with faint echoes of who you used to be. Each box you open releases a little more space, a little more light. The darkness does not vanish. It transforms. Shadows are not enemies to defeat. They are guides pointing toward integration. In time, you begin to see that your strength was never in avoiding the attic, but in entering it with gentleness. Healing does not come from erasing what hurts, but from sitting beside it until it no longer needs to hide. The attic of the soul is not haunted. It is sacred, a library of forgotten selves waiting patiently for you to return. And as you leave that room, carrying both light and shadow in equal measure, the house within you feels whole again. The attic waits not for shame, but for understanding. There are days when calmness vanishes without warning. A single word, a tone, a memory rises, and suddenly the heart begins to thunder. It feels irrational, almost unfair, how quickly peace can turn into rage or sorrow. But every storm that forms inside you carries a message. Emotions are not mistakes of the mind. They are the language of the unconscious, knocking softly and sometimes loudly on the door of awareness. Jung once suggested that what we repress does not disappear. It waits. And when waiting too long, it bursts through the cracks like thunder through quiet skies. The storm is not meant to destroy. It comes to clear the air, to make room for what has been silenced. The rain that floods your heart washes away what logic could never reach. The lightning that frightens you illuminates corners long hidden from sight. The storm, though fierce, is a form of cleansing. Most people fear their emotions because they confuse intensity with danger. They try to quiet the storm before it begins, to hold their breath until it passes. Yet suppression only tightens the sky. Anger, sadness, jealousy, fear. Each emotion is a mirror reflecting an unmet need, a memory unresolved, a truth unspoken. When you meet that reflection without judgment, the storm loses its violence and begins to teach. When anger rises, for instance, it often hides sorrow beneath its heat, the grief of not being seen, the ache of feeling small. When sadness lingers too long, it might not be weakness, but loyalty to something that once mattered. Every emotion, no matter how uncomfortable, holds a fragment of truth that wants to return home. The storm is not against you. It is your own weather system trying to restore balance. To work with this truth, practice stillness within turbulence. The next time anger surges, stop speaking. Do not explain, defend, or attack. Instead, place your hand gently over your heart and whisper, "I hear you." Feel the pulse beneath your palm, the rhythm of a self that is asking not for control, but for compassion. Stay there until the breath steadies, until the noise becomes sound rather than chaos. When you listen in this way, you realize that emotion is simply energy moving through awareness. Gradually, storms stop feeling like punishment. They become conversations. Each one teaches the art of listening without reacting. You start to see how others' tempests mirror your own. Their anger, their fear, their silence, all reflections in the same wide sky. The mirror does not accuse, it reveals. To witness emotion without drowning in it is to grow into calm strength, the kind that stands firm even as the wind howls. When the clouds finally part, the air smells new, the light feels cleaner. You understand that peace was never the absence of emotion, but the harmony that follows honest expression. The self that emerges after the storm is not broken. It is purified, more truthful, more alive. And the next time thunder rolls within, you will not hide from it. You will open the window and listen. Emotions are messages, not enemies. There is a kind of peace that does not come from erasing darkness, but from learning to live beside it. People often speak of wanting only light, joy without pain, clarity without confusion, love without fear. Yet the soul does not grow in halves. Jung once said that one cannot love the light while rejecting the shadow, for both are the same source viewed from different sides. The heart becomes whole not through purity, but through inclusion. Imagine a window in an old house. Its glass is clouded with age, the frame uneven, dust gathering in the corners. When the morning sun enters, it does not avoid the dust, it glows through it. The particles shimmer, floating gently in the light, no longer flaws, but proof of what has been lived. This is what integration feels like. Light finding its way through the imperfections of memory, illuminating what was once hidden. Healing is not the act of washing away what hurts, but of seeing the hurt clearly and letting it belong. The mind resists this truth. It prefers to divide the self into opposites, strong or weak, kind or cruel, good or shameful. But these are only temporary disguises. The person who never allows anger to exist becomes fragile under the weight of it. The one who hides fear behind perfection loses the ability to rest. The attempt to be only light creates a different kind of shadow, the one cast by denial. To integrate is to soften those boundaries, to say, both can exist here. There is a practice for this, a quiet ritual called the shadow journal. Each night before sleep, take a few minutes to write down one thing that once made you feel ashamed. It could be something you said, a choice you regret, a thought you wish you never had. Then write about it again, but in the voice of someone who forgives you. Someone who understands why that moment happened and still chooses to stay. The goal is not to justify the past, but to give it light. When you change the tone of your reflection, the memory loses its sharpness and becomes soft enough to hold. Over time, this gentle practice shifts the way you see yourself. You begin to notice that what you once called weakness was only tenderness unprotected, that what you labeled failure was simply learning in disguise. The parts you hid start to breathe again, and in their quiet return, the body feels lighter. The soul recognizes itself not as a collection of opposites, but as a whole field of experience. Integration does not mean never feeling darkness again. It means knowing that when darkness comes, it will not swallow you. It will pass through, touch you, teach you, and leave you clearer than before. Like sunlight through dusty glass, awareness turns even pain into something luminous. Healing begins when you stop hiding, and so every night becomes a homecoming, the meeting of light and dust, of heart and history. The soul does not seek perfection anymore. It seeks presence. It does not need to shine constantly. It only needs to remain open. In that openness, everything is accepted and nothing is wasted. Healing begins when you stop hiding. Every person carries within them a small fire, steady, patient, and ancient. It does not shout or demand attention. It flickers quietly beneath the surface of daily routines, covered by layers of habit, fear, and the slow dust of time. Nietzsche once wrote that the spirit is like a flame buried under ash, not extinguished, but waiting. To live without tending it is to mistake numbness for peace. To awaken it is to remember what it means to be alive. Most people forget the fire early. The world teaches them to be cautious, to fit, to please. The child who once spoke freely learns to measure every word. The dreamer who once reached for impossible things learns to shrink their desires to what is safe, and soon life becomes a repetition of days, familiar but dull, a quiet existence that no longer burns. Fear calls this comfort, but the soul knows the difference between calm and sleep. Underneath that ash, the flame never disappears. It watches from below, whispering in moments of restlessness, in the ache that comes from doing everything right yet feeling hollow. Sometimes it speaks as curiosity, sometimes as frustration, sometimes as a subtle longing for something unnamed. It does not want perfection. It wants movement. It wants to feel the wind again. To find the flame, one must be willing to disturb the ashes. It is not a violent act. It is a gentle stirring, a conversation with what has been forgotten. Begin simply. Write down 3 things you once wished to do but never dared. Perhaps they seem small, perhaps impossible. Choose one and take a single step toward it today, even if that step is only imagining it without judgment. Action, no matter how small, feeds the flame. Fear starves it. This is not about ambition or success. It is about truth. The sleeping flame does not crave recognition. It only wants expression, the pure act of being aligned with what feels alive. When you move toward what you love, the fire responds immediately. It grows warmer, clearer. The body feels lighter, the mind quieter. Energy replaces anxiety. It is not that fear disappears, it simply loses its power to command. Sometimes the flame appears faint, as if about to fade. That is the moment to listen closest. Its light grows not from confidence but from care, the slow, tender tending of self-belief. Feed it with presence, with honesty, with the small courage of saying, "This matters to me." The more you tend it, the more it teaches you that vitality does not come from achievement, but from authenticity. And when the fire finally rises, you will understand what Nietzsche meant, that courage is not born from strength, but from warmth, the warmth of a spirit that remembers itself. The flame is not wild, it is wise. It knows when to flicker, when to rest, when to reach. Even on quiet days, even when buried beneath uncertainty, it remains. The flame never dies, it only waits. There are moments when life feels like a current pulling in every direction. Plans dissolve, meanings blur, and the familiar order of things begins to tremble. It is easy to call such times chaos, to see them as failures of control, signs that something has gone wrong. Yet Jung believed that the psyche itself is built on this very rhythm, the eternal dance between chaos and order. Without one, the other cannot live. A river needs both its banks and its water. Without flow, it stagnates. Without form, it floods. Human life moves in the same way. Order gives structure, the routine, the logic, the sense of safety that allows things to grow. Chaos, on the other hand, is the unpredictable surge that breaks the stillness, forcing us to adapt, to expand, to see again. When people cling too tightly to order, they begin to harden. When they drown in chaos, they lose shape. The secret is not to escape either, but to learn how to move with their alternation, to recognize that every disruption hides a pattern. Every pattern longs to be renewed. It often begins quietly. Something shifts, a plan falls apart, a relationship changes. The future no longer fits the story you built for it. Fear calls this collapse, but the soul calls it recalibration. The system of the self rearranges itself the way the earth shakes before a new landscape appears. Chaos is not the end. It is the beginning of form. There is an intelligence inside disorder, though it speaks in waves, not words. When life unravels, the first impulse is to rebuild it exactly as before, to impose order, to regain control. But wisdom lies in pausing long enough to ask what this disruption is trying to reveal. Sometimes, chaos is the psyche's way of showing that an old pattern has reached its limit. It is not destruction, it is renovation. To remember this truth, practice a simple act of grounding. When confusion rises, place a hand over your chest and whisper softly, "This is not chaos, this is rhythm." Feel how the body reacts, perhaps slower, perhaps steadier. In that moment, you stop fighting the current and begin to move with it. The nervous system relaxes, the mind clears, and beneath the apparent disorder, you start to sense a quiet pulse. The pulse of becoming. Think of the river again. It doesn't fear its turbulence. It trusts its motion. Every wave, every ripple, every eddy is part of its journey from source to sea. Likewise, The self needs its moments of wildness and rest, of uncertainty and clarity. Growth happens where they meet, where chaos gives birth to new order and order makes space for fresh movement. In the end, the dance between the two is not a problem to solve, but a relationship to nurture. When you stop resisting, life stops breaking and begins to flow. You become the river itself, held by its banks, shaped by its motion, balanced between surrender and stability. Chaos is not the end. It is the beginning of form. Every morning arrives quietly, like a soft knocking at the edge of consciousness. It does not ask for grandeur, only for presence, the willingness to open your eyes and let the light in, even if the heart still feels heavy. In the stillness before the day begins, there is an invisible choice: to remain within yesterday's weight or to begin again. The act of beginning, however small, is a declaration of courage. It is the soul saying, "I am still here." Existential philosophers have long believed that rebirth is not a single event but a daily practice. Each dawn offers forgiveness without condition. No matter what came before, the mistakes, the fatigue, the silence that felt endless, the morning arrives as proof that life continues to trust you. Nietzsche once wrote that one must have chaos within to give birth to a dancing star. That chaos, when accepted, becomes potential. The light that enters your window each day is not a demand to be perfect, but an invitation to be new. Imagine a window that has been closed for too long. Dust gathers, curtains grow stiff, the air grows stale. To open it requires no ceremony, only willingness. The hinges creak, the sunlight spills across the floor, and the world begins to move again. The room does not need to be spotless. It only needs light. Renewal works the same way. You do not have to rebuild your entire life in one day. You only need to open the window, to let the possibility of something different touch you. Beginning again often feels like defeat. The ego prefers continuity. It wants to believe that progress is a straight line. But existence moves in circles. Every ending hides the seed of another start. To fall is not to fail. It is to meet the ground from which growth begins. When you allow yourself to start anew, you reclaim the freedom to evolve without shame. The weight of expectation dissolves, and what remains is space, the quiet, sacred space of becoming. When disappointment visits, try the small ritual. Write the words, "I have not lost, I am beginning again." Read them slowly, as if speaking to a dear friend. Notice how your body responds. There might be resistance, but beneath it, a flicker of relief, a reminder that you are not bound to any version of yourself. The mind, too, can breathe again when given permission to restart. To begin again does not mean erasing the past. It means carrying its lessons with gentleness. It is the art of standing within imperfection and choosing to continue. Each breath becomes an act of renewal. Each sunrise, a quiet absolution. Even the smallest effort, rising from bed, facing the day, forgiving yourself for yesterday, is an act of bravery. The courage to begin again is not loud. It does not need an audience. It happens in silence, when you open the window of the self and allow the first light to enter. The night no longer feels like failure, only the prelude to another dawn. And when that light touches your face, you understand. Every dawn forgives the night before. There is a stillness that arrives between breaths. The moment when everything pauses, yet life continues beneath it. It is in that stillness that faith quietly lives. Most people think faith is the absence of fear, a radiant certainty untouched by doubt. But true faith is softer, humbler. It does not erase fear, it simply moves beside it. The heart keeps beating even when the mind trembles. The quiet pulse of life does not wait for courage to arrive. It keeps going, reminding you that existence itself trusts you to continue. There are nights when anxiety feels louder than the world outside. Thoughts loop endlessly, building a storm that refuses to sleep. You may try to silence it with reason, distraction, or effort, but the mind rarely surrenders to force. In those moments, remember the heart, that steady, tireless rhythm that beats no matter what you believe. It asks for nothing in return, only that you listen. Faith begins not in ideas, but in this awareness that something within you keeps choosing life even when you cannot explain why. To trust is to align with that pulse. It does not demand that you be unshaken. It only asks that you notice what endures beneath the noise. The philosopher Kierkegaard called faith a leap into uncertainty, a step not supported by evidence, but by willingness. To move despite fear is not denial, it is intimacy with life. Every act of trust is a conversation with the unseen. I may not know how, but I will try anyway. I may not see the path, but I will take one more step. When fear arises, the instinct is to tighten, to pull away, to freeze. But fear, too, has a language. It is the body's way of asking for attention, not avoidance. The next time your chest feels heavy, pause, place your hand gently over your heart, and breathe. Feel the rhythm beneath your palm, the quiet reminder that you are still here, still moving, still connected to something beyond thought. Whisper to yourself, fear speaks, trust listens. You do not need to silence fear. You only need to listen long enough for it to soften. As the pulse steadies, a realization begins to form. Fear and faith are not enemies, but companions. Fear keeps you alert. Faith keeps you alive. Together, they teach balance, the art of trembling and stepping forward at once. The courage to live has never been the absence of shaking. It is the decision to move even while shaking. The heartbeat doesn't wait for peace to resume. It beats because it must. Over time, you begin to hear the rhythm everywhere, in the hum of a city at dawn, in the wind brushing the trees, in your own breathing. Life itself is one continuous pulse flowing through all things. The same current that moves stars through the sky moves through you. That realization changes everything. You no longer chase certainty. You listen for rhythm. Faith, then, is not a promise of calm, but a practice of presence. It is the quiet understanding that even when everything feels uncertain, there is still something steady beneath it. A pulse, soft but unbroken. And in that pulse, the truth rests. Fear speaks. Trust listens. There is a quiet truth that lives in every form of suffering. It is not pain itself that binds us, but our unwillingness to release it. The Buddha taught that attachment is the root of all suffering, and yet letting go is one of the hardest things a human being can do. We hold on to what once gave us meaning, people, dreams, regrets, as if the act of holding could preserve them from change. But life was never built to stay still. The moment we clutch too tightly, the flow stops, and the hand that refuses to open begins to ache. Imagine a hand grasping sand. The harder it squeezes, the more slips away. Letting go is not a loss. It is a return to movement. Like a river unclogged or a breath released, The act of opening creates room for something new to enter. But because the mind fears emptiness, it confuses release with abandonment. It forgets that emptiness is not absence, it is space. Space for new forms, new light, new life to grow. Attachment begins innocently. You love, so you cling. You dream, so you expect. You succeed, so you fear losing. Each attachment starts as a thread of connection but can tighten into a rope that limits your motion. To let go is not to sever love. It is to allow it to breathe beyond your control. The philosopher Lao Tzu wrote that when one stops grasping, the world is restored to balance. Love itself does not demand ownership. It thrives in freedom. In practice, release is not dramatic. It happens slowly, in small, tender gestures. Each night before sleep, think of one thing you are still holding, a memory, a resentment, a wish that never came true. Sit with it, feel its weight. Then whisper softly, "Thank you for what you gave me." Gratitude transforms endings into continuations. You are not discarding, you are acknowledging. With each act of thanks, the emotional grip loosens. The heart reclaims its strength, not by closing, but by remaining open even after loss. Letting go also means forgiving the self. The mind often replays what could have been, what should have been done differently. But every moment, even the painful ones, was a teacher disguised. To release is to honor those lessons without carrying their burden. The past does not need to vanish. It only needs to rest. The art lies in seeing transience not as betrayal, but as rhythm, the natural breath of existence inhaling and exhaling through time. As the practice deepens, something beautiful happens. The energy once trapped in holding begins to move again. The body feels lighter, the mind clearer, the soul more spacious. You realize that nothing was ever truly lost. It was only transformed. The person you loved becomes a quiet blessing in memory. The dream you outgrew becomes wisdom. The pain you endured becomes compassion. To let go is not to surrender meaning. It is to trust that meaning evolves. It is the faith that what leaves creates the space for what is next. The closed hand cannot receive, but the open one welcomes endlessly. In this opening lies peace. In this softness lies freedom. Release is not loss. It is renewal. There is a fragile bridge that stretches between every human soul, unseen yet vital, trembling with the weight of unspoken truths. It is made not of stone or steel, but of honesty. Vulnerability is that bridge, the trembling courage to let another see you as you are without the armor of certainty or control. It feels perilous, like crossing a wooden bridge that sways above an unseen depth, but it is the only path that leads to real connection. From a distance, vulnerability looks like weakness. We are taught to stand tall, to appear composed, to keep the softest parts of ourselves hidden. The world seems to reward strength and punish tenderness. Yet strength built upon concealment becomes isolation. The harder you hide, the lonelier you become. And beneath that armor, the heart still longs to be known. Jung once wrote that wholeness is not achieved by perfection, but by integration. The meeting of shadow and light, fear and openness, self and other. Vulnerability is where that meeting begins. The first step onto the bridge always feels uncertain. You take a breath, you move forward, and everything inside you shakes. What if they don't understand? What if they turn away? What if it hurts again? But the truth is this: no one crosses safely without trembling. The bridge was built to move. Its motion does not mean collapse. It means life. Vulnerability is not the absence of fear, but the decision to walk anyway. Strength is born when we dare to be seen. The irony is that the very thing we fear, being seen in our truth, is also the thing we crave. We want to be understood, not for our achievements or our masks, but for the quiet reality beneath them. To open the heart, even slightly, is to give another person permission to do the same. Vulnerability becomes a shared language, one that says, I trust you enough to show you the places I once hid. And in that exchange, connection deepens beyond performance into something tender and enduring. To practice this, begin small. Once a week, choose one person you trust, someone who listens without fixing. Tell them how you really feel. It does not have to be profound or poetic. You might simply say, I've been tired, or I felt distant lately. Let your words carry the truth, even if your voice trembles. Notice how your body reacts, the release in your shoulders, the softening of your breath. This is the bridge holding. The act of being honest does not weaken you. It roots you in reality. Over time, vulnerability stops feeling like exposure and begins to feel like belonging. You realize that to be seen and still accepted is the greatest form of safety. Relationships built on that kind of truth do not need perfection. They need presence. They hold space for imperfection, for silence, for growth. And when you look back, you will see that the bridge you crossed was never only between you and another person. It was also within, between the part of you that hid and the part that longed to emerge. Each honest word, each brave conversation becomes a plank in that bridge, carrying you closer to wholeness. It may shake, it may creak, but it will hold. Strength is born when we dare to be seen. There is a kind of silence that feels heavy at first, as if the world itself has stepped back and left you alone with your own echo. Most people rush to fill it with sound, with words, with movement. But silence is not an absence. It is a presence waiting to be noticed. It is the quiet soil in which transformation takes root. Just as a seed must lie in darkness before it becomes a tree, the soul too must dwell in stillness before it can grow. We live in a world allergic to quiet. Every space hums with the need to be filled, with notifications, conversations, noise disguised as meaning. Yet beneath all that noise, there exists a pulse so subtle it is often forgotten, the rhythm of being. Silence is where that rhythm returns to you. It is not empty, it is full of whispers, of clarity, of truth that speaks too softly to be heard through chaos. To sit in silence is not to escape the world, but to feel it more deeply, without distortion. The philosopher Lao Tzu once suggested that those who know do not speak, and those who speak do not know. Silence, then, is not ignorance, it is wisdom choosing restraint. In silence, the mind begins to unclench. Thoughts drift like clouds. Emotions settle like dust after rain. What was once loud and tangled reveals its true shape. The storm of thinking gives way to a sky of awareness. The longer you stay, the more you realize that silence does not demand. It listens. It holds space for everything you've been too busy to feel. At first, the quiet can feel uncomfortable. The absence of distraction exposes what you have been avoiding: grief, fear, longing. But these feelings are not intrusions. They are guests arriving for the first time after being ignored. Sit with them. Let them speak. The silence will not judge. Like dark soil embracing the seed, It gives your emotions a place to rest, to decompose, to transform. Every buried thing eventually becomes nourishment if you allow it enough stillness. To practice this, take 10 minutes each day to be with silence. No music, no screens, no conversation. Simply sit and listen to your breath, the faint rhythm that proves you are alive. Let your attention rest on the rise and fall of your chest. Notice how even the air carries sound. The hum of the room, the faint ticking of time, the steady whisper of your existence. The longer you stay, the softer everything becomes. In that space, you will find not emptiness, but presence, vast, patient, and full of meaning. Over time, the silence begins to change its texture. It no longer feels heavy. It feels sacred. It becomes a companion, a teacher, a quiet force that renews the mind. You begin to see that every important change happens quietly. Hearts mending, wounds closing, dawn arriving without announcement. The world grows in silence. So do you. When you return to the noise of life, carry a piece of that quiet within you. It will remind you that peace is not the absence of sound, but the ability to hear yourself within it. Silence does not take, it teaches. There is a place within every human being that no noise can touch. A still center behind thought and emotion, watching everything but belonging to nothing. Jung called it the self, the silent witness that remains unchanged even as the waves of life crash and fade. To find this place is not to escape the world, but to remember that you are more than what happens to you. Like a lake reflecting the sky, your mind becomes calm, not by avoiding the wind, but by no longer identifying with it. Every day, the world tries to pull you into reaction. A word cuts deeper than it should. A look stirs old insecurity. A situation reignites forgotten fear. You feel the ripples immediately. Anger, shame, anxiety, the surface of your being disturbed. But beneath those ripples, there is stillness. The witness does not react. It observes. It does not argue with reality. It allows reality to pass through. You are not the wind that moves the water. You are the water that remembers stillness after the wind. To live from this space is to move differently through life. You begin to realize that not every emotion demands a response. Not every thought requires belief. You can watch the rise and fall of feelings as you would watch clouds drift across the sky. The pain still exists, but it no longer owns you. The witness doesn't suppress emotion. It gives it space to unfold and dissolve naturally. Just as the lake returns to calm after a storm, so too does the heart when it no longer fights what it feels. There is power in pausing. The next time someone offends or misunderstands you, resist the urge to react. Instead, take a breath, slow, deliberate. Feel it pass through your body, grounding you. Then quietly remind yourself, I am the lake, not the wind. In that instant, you shift from reaction to awareness. The insult or chaos around you loses its weight. What once felt personal becomes simply movement. Wind over water, momentary and passing. This practice is not about indifference. It is about freedom. When you stop letting every disturbance define you, you create space for clarity and compassion. You can listen without absorbing, speak without defending, act without fear. Life remains unpredictable, but you are no longer at its mercy. The self does not need to control the world because it understands that peace comes from within, not from order outside. In this stillness, you begin to notice subtle things: the warmth of light on your skin, the pulse beneath your hand, the quiet hum of being alive. Awareness sharpens, not through effort, but through presence. You see others more clearly too, realizing that their actions often come from their own storms. From this calmness, empathy grows naturally. Over time, the witness becomes your true home. You move through the day like the surface of a tranquil lake, reflecting, not absorbing. The world can shout, but your depth remains untouched. The storms may come, but they no longer define you. They only remind you of the silence waiting beneath. Nothing outside defines you. You are the lake, vast, patient, and whole. There comes a point in every journey when effort turns into exhaustion, when the will to steer gives way to the quiet truth that the river has always known its course. Peace does not arrive through control. It reveals itself when we stop fighting the flow. Like a small boat drifting on vast water, the soul finds balance not by mastering the current, but by trusting it. The more you struggle to hold life still, the more it slips through your hands. But when you release your grip, the current lifts you gently, carrying you exactly where you need to go. Modern life often confuses control with safety. We tighten schedules, plan every detail, build expectations as walls against uncertainty. Yet the harder we try to control the future, the more fragile the present becomes. Control is a mirage. It gives the illusion of stability while quietly feeding fear. Real peace does not come from shaping the world to your liking. It comes from learning to stay steady when the world refuses to obey. The philosopher Alan Watts once said that peace is like floating. If you struggle, you sink. If you relax, you rise. Surrender, then, is not defeat. It is intelligence, the wisdom to align with the rhythm of existence instead of resisting it. The universe moves in patterns far beyond our understanding. Tides, seasons, breath, time. To live in harmony with those patterns is to remember that you belong to something larger, something that does not need your constant management to work. When the mind becomes restless, it tries to fix, to predict, to secure. But equilibrium cannot be forced. It can only be felt. The next time your thoughts tighten with worry, imagine yourself as that small boat on still water. Stop rowing. Let the oars rest. The movement of life will continue without your push. In this quiet letting go, you rediscover the gentle rhythm that was always there. The pulse of the tide, the rise and fall of breath, the natural intelligence of being alive. To make this real, practice a simple act each evening. Write down 3 things you could not control today: a reaction, a delay, a disappointment. Look at them, acknowledge them, and then whisper, "I allow them to be." The acceptance is not resignation, it is release. It is the choice to stop forcing what is already unfolding as it must. As you breathe, feel the body soften. The water beneath you steadies. Balance returns not through effort, but through remembering. The heart, like the sea, finds its calm when allowed to rest. The waves will rise again, as they always do. But now you know, they are part of the same ocean that carries you home. When morning comes, you may find that the things you once feared losing no longer weigh as much. You have not escaped the current. You have learned to float within it. Peace was never something to be found or earned. It was the memory of wholeness waiting beneath all your resistance. Peace is not found. It is remembered. There is a moment just before sunrise when the world seems to hold its breath. The rain has passed, the air still glistens with quiet memory, and the light begins to unfold. Not in brilliance, but in tenderness. This is how healing arrives, not as thunder or revelation, but as a soft morning, shy and forgiving, touching everything that survived the storm. Every crisis, though violent in its season, leaves behind something new. A subtle widening of the heart, a deeper patience, a quieter strength. We often think growth must feel triumphant, that transformation should announce itself with certainty. But the truth is gentler. Growth rarely feels like victory. It feels like dawn, fragile, hesitant, and yet unstoppable. You wake, still carrying the weight of yesterday, but the light no longer hurts. It enters softly, asking only that you notice it. After long nights of uncertainty, the mind learns to see differently. You begin to understand that survival itself is a form of grace. What broke you did not end you. It revealed what could not be broken. Jung once said that even the darkest night of the soul is a prelude to consciousness. The rain that fell was not punishment. It was cleansing, preparing the ground for something to grow. The soft morning is that first breath after chaos. You do not need to rush into meaning. The light will not ask you to explain what you've learned. It only asks you to stand in it quietly, to be present for your own return. Healing doesn't demand perfection. It only invites permission. Permission to begin again, to smile again, to trust that your soul still remembers how to open. To anchor this truth, begin each morning with a single line of gratitude. Not to the world, not to others, but to yourself. Write, "Thank you for trying," or "Thank you for staying," or simply, "Thank you for being." Gratitude is not denial of struggle. It is acknowledgement of endurance. When you thank yourself, you honor every version of you that walked through the rain and refused to give up. As the day unfolds, notice how light touches the smallest things: the window pane, the curve of a leaf, the quiet steam of your coffee. These details, so easily ignored, are reminders that peace does not arrive grandly. It seeps in through the cracks, through the simplest acts of being alive. You do not need to chase the sunrise. You are already standing in it. And when life trembles again, as it inevitably will, remember this morning. Remember that storms end not because we fight them, but because the sky remembers how to clear. The soft morning does not erase what came before. It redeems it. It says, "You made it through, and that is enough." You are not the storm. You are what emerges after it, clear, calm, and luminous. You are the dawn after your own storm. There is a rhythm to life that cannot be rushed, a circle that keeps turning, carrying us through endings and beginnings until we finally understand that they are the same thing. Jung believed that rebirth is not about becoming someone new, but about remembering who we have always been. Growth is not a straight line forward. It is a spiral inward, a return to essence. We move, we stumble, we change, but beneath it all remains something constant, a quiet truth waiting to be recalled. The human mind often imagines progress as escape, a movement away from what was painful, imperfect, or naive. Yet every time we try to outrun the past, we find ourselves tracing familiar patterns in new forms. Life keeps circling back, not to punish us, but to remind us of what we have forgotten. The same lessons reappear, the same emotions resurface, until understanding finally settles where resistance used to live. We do not move backward, we spiral deeper. Imagine a circle drawn in soft sand. Each step forward eventually leads you back to where you began, but with new eyes. The sea that erased your footprints did not undo your journey. It only invited you to walk again with greater awareness. So it is with the soul. Every ending, every return, every quiet realization brings you closer to the center, the place within that has been waiting, patient and unchanged through all the tides of your becoming. Jung called this process individuation, the path of remembering the self beneath the masks, the noise and the years of forgetting. It is not an act of improvement, but of reunion. To grow is to shed the borrowed identities that once felt necessary, and to stand once more in the simplicity of your truth. This is why the circle never truly closes. It widens with each turn, allowing you to see farther without ever leaving home. In practice, this remembrance begins gently. At the end of a long day, write these words somewhere visible. I do not need to become anyone. I only need to remember who I am. Sit with the sentence until it feels less like an affirmation and more like a return. Memory, in this sense, is not about the past. It is about presence, the rediscovery of what has always existed beneath the noise. As the seasons change, notice how nature lives this truth effortlessly. The trees lose their leaves and still remain trees. The moon disappears and still returns whole. Nothing truly begins and nothing truly ends. It all continues in quiet rhythm. You too are part of this design. Even when you feel lost, you are still within the circle, still turning toward understanding. One day, you will look back and realize that every detour was part of the same path. The mistakes, the pauses, the heartbreaks, each one was a curve in the circle, guiding you closer to yourself. You were never broken, only unfolding. You were never drifting away, only circling home. Becoming is remembering. There is a kind of freedom that does not announce itself with rebellion or noise. It does not shout or demand or tear down walls. It arrives quietly, almost imperceptibly, the moment you stop being afraid of yourself. Nietzsche believed that true freedom is not the ability to do everything, but the courage to face everything within. It is not found in escaping limits, but in making peace with what you once feared to see. For most of life, people mistake freedom for expansion. They chase new horizons, new experiences, new selves, believing that liberation lies somewhere out there. But no matter how far they go, fear follows like a shadow, whispering doubts and turning each new horizon into another cage. Freedom cannot be built upon avoidance. It begins the moment you stop running from the parts of yourself you do not understand. Imagine a bird that hesitates at the edge of a branch. The sky is vast, the wind uncertain, and yet the bird does not fly because the world is open. It flies because it no longer fears the fall. The same law governs the soul. When you stop fearing your own depths, your sadness, your anger, your longing, life expands naturally, effortlessly. You begin to move not from resistance, but from trust. The air carries you because you have stopped fighting it. Inner freedom is not a loud victory. It is a silent reconciliation. The day you forgive the parts of yourself that once felt unworthy, the moment you no longer measure your worth by anyone's gaze. It is the quiet confidence of standing still while the world spins around you, knowing that you are no longer defined by its motion. To be free is not to have control over everything, but to lose the need to control at all. In practice, freedom begins with reflection. Write down 3 things that once frightened you: the rejection you feared, the failure you avoided, the truth you refused to speak. Then, beside each one, write how you have changed. Perhaps you endured and survived. Perhaps you broke and rebuilt. Perhaps you simply learned to stop apologizing for your existence. This act is not about pride, it is about recognition. You are no longer who you were when those fears ruled you. You have grown in silence, and that silence is your strength. The world will continue to test you. People will misunderstand you. Storms will come. Old doubts will whisper again. But freedom is not the absence of challenge. It is the awareness that you can meet challenge without collapsing. Like a tree that bends but does not break, you remain rooted in something deeper than fear. The noise of judgment fades. The urgency to prove dissolves. What remains is calm, the still pulse of a mind that trusts itself. In the end, the quiet freedom is not about flying higher or farther. It is about landing fully in yourself. When fear no longer commands your choices, every step becomes a flight, every silence a song. You do not seek permission to exist. You simply exist. You are free, not because the world has changed, but because you have. Freedom is inner silence. The morning arrives softly. Light drifts through the curtain, unhurried, tracing quiet shapes across the room. The world feels still again, not empty, just calm, as if everything has settled into its rightful place. You breathe, slow and deep, and for the first time in a long while, you feel no need to fix, to search, or to run. Peace is not somewhere you find. It is the space that opens when you stop trying to escape yourself. You have walked through shadow and silence, through fear and surrender, and now you stand in the quiet center of it all. The storms you once avoided have taught you how to stay. The darkness you once feared has revealed its purpose, not to harm you, but to show you where your light begins. Enlightenment is not about imagining brightness. It is about understanding the night. The world outside still moves, but inside, something eternal has become still. You begin to see that nothing was ever missing. Every loss shaped you. Every silence strengthened you. Every return brought you closer to your own rhythm. This is not the end of the journey, but the recognition that the path has always led back here, to this breath, this body, this quiet belonging. Sit for a moment in the light that remains. Let it touch your skin, your thoughts, your pulse. It doesn't ask for gratitude or effort. It only asks to be received. The heart does not need more. It only needs to remember. You are not broken. You are becoming. You are not lost. You have returned. Everything you seek outside has always lived within.